Good afternoon, Cedarfield. How is everybody doing today on this beautiful summer day? It is almost officially summer this weekend. We have our big summer solstice. I'm enjoying all of the daylight, and hopefully these nice mild temperatures will hold out, especially for this weekend. It's a big weekend for Cedarfield. So I just wanted to say Happy Jubilee to Cedarfield, and I'm so privileged, feel so privileged and honored to be a part of this community, even for just a little segment of the 25 years of the history here. So I hope everyone has a wonderful weekend celebrating. And also I want to say Happy Father's Day to all the dads out there. I just realized it's Father's Day this weekend. So I wanted to say Happy Father's Day. We love all of you dads, and we hope you enjoy your day as well. Alrighty, so let's go ahead and get started. So today's topic will be a little different. Last week I know I said that, and hopefully I did not turn too many people away with my squeamish topic about the cicadas. Anyway, this will be a little bit better than talking about eating bugs. Anyway, so I wanted to talk about the concept of mindfulness. So when I first came to Cedarfield, it was in November, and then in January, I remember, so this would have been January of 2020, I remember I guess it was the January town hall meeting back in the day when we used to do those with Michael Shaw and Matt Dameron. They both talked about, I remember Michael Shaw talked about how his New Year's resolution was going to be to practice mindfulness in his life. And he and Matt talked a little bit about what that means, and how we could all use mindfulness in our lives and how we could incorporate it into our lives. And then I thought it was so interesting because one of the benefits of practicing mindfulness is it can be a way to relieve stress or to get some stress out of your life. And I thought, it was kind of, as I was putting this together, I thought, what kind of foreshadowing was that we were talking about this method of relieving stress, and then the rest of that year ended up being one of the most stressful years I think a lot of us have probably experienced. So hopefully you all were able to use mindfulness throughout the year. But all bets were off during 2020, right? Anyway, so I thought I would revisit this and how you can incorporate mindfulness into eating and meal times and nutrition. Anyway, I was going to go over a little bit about what mindfulness is, and then we'll talk about it more specifically with food. So mindfulness is kind of this concept. It's not exactly, it can mean a lot of things to a lot of people, but basically it's kind of the practice of focusing on the present and not always being caught up in things that happened in the past, particularly with remorse, regrets, or it's okay to certainly have fond, memories of people who've passed, or, even to go through a grieving period, but to really try to live in the present and be, accepting of whatever is happening in your life at the time. It doesn't necessarily mean you're always going to be happy or being happy in the present. You are allowed to experience a lot of different emotions. But then on the flip side, you also want to not focus so much on planning for the future. Obviously, some planning is very important and vital, but I say often, sometimes I feel like I spend more time planning events or planning my day or task than it does to actually do the task. So sometimes I have to kind of, maybe not plan quite so much and just let things kind of happen as they will. But it's good to find that healthy balance. But mindfulness helps you to, like I said, focus on kind of the here and now, and to allow yourself to accept and to feel whatever emotions you're experiencing at the time. Whether you're happy or sad or, stressed out or worried, or maybe you are grieving, or whatever that is. Just being aware of what you're feeling, accepting it, and then just trying to figure out how you're going to overcome that if it's something negative, or to just kind of celebrate it if it's something positive. So this can be a great way to relieve stress, as I said, or just to kind of clear your mind, help you to deal with some overwhelming emotions. So there's a lot of benefits. So meditation is something you've probably heard of, and that's very similar to mindfulness. People who practice meditation, or even just prayer, or even yoga, things like that. These are all ways that you can practice mindfulness, but it's kind of a bigger thing than just those very specific things. There's lots of different ways to practice mindfulness. And obviously this is a nutrition show, so we're going to talk about how we can practice it through eating in our meals. So obviously nutrition is important to our body, and food is important to our body from a physiological standpoint. I mean, that's no secret. Obviously, that's why we eat, right? To stay alive. And we've certainly talked about all the benefits of vitamins and minerals in lots of different ways. But we also know that, throughout history, throughout all the cultures in our world and religions, etc., eating has become so much more than just, keeping us alive physically. It's a very community-building aspect. It's a time for us to gather and be together, to share food, etc. There's all kinds of events that happen over meals. So, and a lot of times it's used as a celebration. Nutrition and eating can also be centered around a lot of emotions. Again, kind of going back to like celebrations. I mean, anytime you go to a wedding, there's usually a meal. Sometimes you go to a funeral, there's a meal. How many times have you, maybe someone just graduated from college and you go out to dinner to celebrate, and all of our holidays are centered around meals. So there's a lot of emotions around meals. But then sometimes, we eat when we're stressed, right? Or we eat when we're sad, or sometimes the opposite happens. Sometimes our appetites shut down when we're stressed or sad, or we're grieving. And then, some people develop, it goes as far as developing eating disorders centered around, disordered thoughts and emotional problems. So, all of these things kind of get jumbled together besides just that physical aspect of eating. So we'll kind of go into that more emotional part of eating. All right, so what we're going to talk about today, mindful eating versus mindless eating. It's just kind of a little play on those words. So mindful eating, keep in mind that what we're going to talk about today isn't kind of the end-all be-all of how you should be eating your meals. This is just if you decide you're looking for a way to incorporate mindfulness into your life, this is one way that you can do it. So maybe you are doing it just to find a little peace of mind during your day or during your week. And so you could do it, through eating your meals. Maybe you just decide you want to meditate a couple of times a week, and that's how you practice mindfulness. Or you can do a lot of different things. You can go to church or go for a walk or whatever you like, but this is just one way that you can do it. Again, if you don't follow this, it's not necessarily going to affect your nutrition or your health. This is just something that you can practice. However, this can be very beneficial in ways physically. If you are having issues with overeating or not being able to control your poor eating habits, this could be a good way to maybe try to overcome those things. If you are trying to lose weight, this could be a good practice for you without having to stick to a really strict, regimented, restrictive diet. This could be a little easier way to kind of help you pay attention to some of your eating habits and where you can make improvements. But this could also, if you are having issues with indigestion or just GI symptoms that are maybe just more tied to emotions or stress rather than an actual physical problem, because we all know that can be the case. I mean, if you're really stressed, it's not a secret that you might, feel a little sour stomach or something like that. So if you're having kind of minor GI issues that you kind of feel are more related to something greater going on in your life other than something physical, this could be a way to maybe tune into what those things are in your life and help you kind of control some of those physical manifestations of stress or anxiety or anything like that. Alrighty, so one of the first mindless things you can do to mindless eat, we're going to kind of go mindless, mindful. All right, so the first one is just kind of ignoring your body's signals. So we have actual hormones in our bodies that control when you're hungry and when you're full, to signal to you, your brain, hey, it's time to eat, or hey, it's time to stop eating. And this is all based on your blood sugar and how much fat you have and all these different aspects of your body just trying to sustain itself. So when your body recognizes, hey, we need to eat something because we're getting a little weak or a little woozy, it's going to send up these signals to let you know, and that's what's going to cue those, those feelings of hunger, and that's, you're going to eat something to kind of overcome that. And then vice versa happens. When your body's had enough and it's full, it's going to send those signals to you to tell you, okay, we've had enough, you're nourished, we're good, you can stop eating now. But we are all guilty of overeating, we go to a restaurant. So I call this the Chipotle moment. So I love to go to Chipotle and get those gigantic burritos. They stuff them to the brim. And I can typically eat about 3/4 of one. And I get to that final 1/4. And I have what I call the Chipotle moment, where I know good and well I could stop eating that burrito at that moment. I really could have stopped eating it about halfway through, but I keep going. I could stop here and I would be perfectly full. I would be more than full for a long time. But there's that little bit left, and you go through that debate in your head, oh, it's not enough to save. Oh, it's so delicious, I just eat a few more bites. Oh, I hate to waste it, I don't want to throw it away. There's all this, oh, but I know I'm full. I know if I finish this, I'm going to be miserable. My pants aren't going to fit. You go through that whole back and forth. So those are those what we call satiety cues. Those are your body telling you you're full. Shut it down. Walk away. Walk away from the burrito. So that's that Chipotle moment. So, if we were going to practice mindfulness, we would pay attention to our body. And when our body is telling us we're full, then we should exhibit some self-control. We're all grown-ups. We can exhibit self-control and stop eating. Sometimes it's hard to stop eating if you're really enjoying a meal, even if you know you're going to be miserable later on. Sometimes it's hard to step away, but I think if we continue to practice that notion of paying attention to when we're full and stopping our eating, and then just kind of waiting 20 minutes, 30 minutes, an hour, and see how we feel, and realize, oh, I'm still full even though I only ate half of my meal, or I stopped when I knew I should stop eating. I'm still full, I didn't go back for seconds. Then you'll start to recognize, that you could probably eat a little less, and feel full longer and not have to kind of be worried about, oh, am I going to be full for the next couple of hours or whatever. So again, these are all just ways of paying attention to your body and paying attention to those signals it's sending you. Another thing that's really important is to eat very slowly. Try to slow down how you're eating. That's beneficial to your digestion. It's also beneficial, as we get older, to make sure we're chewing our food and swallowing safely. But it also, when we slow down and we eat slowly and we chew slowly with intention, that helps our body, that gives our bodies enough time to send those signals to our brains. It can take up to 20 minutes for your body to feel full, but I know plenty of people who can scarf down a meal in way less than 20 minutes. So your body hasn't had a chance to catch up to feeling full, sending that signal up to your brain. So then by the time all that happens, it's too late, you've eaten way too much. So, stretch out that meal and enjoy it, and just kind of slow down. All right. One thing I was considering, a little trick, is that, if you do kind of fall into that moment, that Chipotle moment where you think like, oh, this isn't enough to save, I don't want to waste it, so I'm just going to go ahead and finish it off. Before you start your meal, one thing I kind of sometimes suggest to people who are trying to control what they're eating is to go ahead and like section off your food. Whatever that amount is that is okay to save, go ahead and put that to the side, or at least maybe kind of draw a little line in your plate. And when you finish everything else, then kind of take a moment at that point and say, okay, am I full? Maybe I can just finish my drink, or eat a few bites of something else, maybe a dessert or something. And then if I am still full, you could have a little more or not. You can, you already kind of have that food set aside. So again, a lot of it comes down to self-control, which is sometimes difficult, I understand. All right, so now we're going to talk about kind of the flip side. So we were just talking about paying attention to our bodies when we're full, but now we all want to talk about paying attention to our bodies when it's telling us we're hungry, or when it's not telling us we're hungry. Sometimes that's the bigger problem. So again, going back to food being tied in with emotions, and a lot of times when you're feeling sad or depressed or anxious or stressed, a lot of people turn to food as kind of a comfort. And that's, we call some of those foods comfort foods. That's kind of the word for them, that we're kind of used to. And then the opposite can happen. Sometimes we turn to food when we're happy. I think, it's kind of different from what I was saying earlier, where we use food to celebrate, major events. That's different. But I know, like for me personally, if I had something really big to do in a day, and I've worked really hard at it, like I can think back like when I was in school and I had a really big presentation and I'd been working so hard on it, and I probably stayed up all night working on it, and then I was stressed about it, and then I give my presentation and it's over and it went well and I feel elated and I'm so happy, and what's my go-to was like, I'm gonna go get a milkshake at Sonic or something. Like I tend to reward myself with food. There is nothing wrong with that, but if you are if you are trying to control, like I said, poor eating habits, or you're trying to control how much you eat in a day, or counting calories or whatever, it's really important to pay attention to whether you truly are hungry or not before you eat something. So are you eating just because you're bored? I saw something on Facebook the other day, and someone put a sign in their refrigerator when they opened the door. It said, "You're not hungry, you're bored, shut the door." So I thought that was really funny, but it's true. Like that's, one way to think about, am I hungry? Why am I eating? Am I just bored? Am I sad? Am I stressed? Am I, if I'm happy and I want to reward myself, is there some other way I can reward myself, or is there some other way I can make myself feel better or cheer myself up without having to turn to food? Again, there's nothing wrong with turning to food if it's not problematic for you, but if you are trying to kind of manage certain things about your diet, then this is a good way to practice that. So some things to consider is, and these are obvious, and I'm sure you've probably heard them before, but go for a walk, or call a friend, or maybe treat yourself to a crossword puzzle or some kind of brain game, something to occupy your mind. Listen to some music that you really love, or that always cheers me up. Just any kind of other way to cheer yourself up, to occupy your mind, engage your mind in something other than food if you're not truly hungry. All right. So then I was going to say also, if you are finding that you're hungry, or maybe you aren't really hungry, but you really just need some food to kind of get you through that little hump, try to have some nutritious foods on hand, rather than turning to those, junk foods or the big bag of chips or something. Have some fruit and vegetables on hand, or something, more nutritious that's going to be beneficial to your body physically, than just kind of satisfying an urge with some junk food. It's fine every once in a while. I give you permission every once in a while. All right, so here is kind of the bulk of mindful eating. So there's a statistics that I read. This is a very general statistic. I don't know what the source is, but it is pretty true if you think about it. At least in my life, I find that about 50% of the time we're eating, we're also doing something else. So we're eating and multitasking. I am incredibly guilty of that. I eat my lunch while I'm working a lot of days. I was eating my lunch while I was putting this presentation together, so I'm certainly guilty of it. We eat in front of the TV, we eat on the run, we pull through fast food and grab something really quick. We eat at random times, just like, let me grab something really quick because I gotta go off to do this, whatever. Again, there's nothing wrong with these things, but if you are trying to incorporate some mindfulness into your life, these are some, things that have become more acceptable in society, and we can kind of turn that back to, the good old days of that, having that nice family dinner around the dinner table, things like that. So some of my suggestions are having a very intentional time to eat rather than eating on the go. Make a space in your day, or a couple of times a week. It doesn't have to be every meal or every day. Maybe it's 1 or 2 days a week where you have a very intentional time to eat. Maybe you cook a really nice meal for yourself, or treat yourself to something nice in the dining room, and just make that an intentional time where you're going to shut everything else off and just sit and enjoy your meal. And that might be by yourself, and that's fine. Some people prefer to eat by themselves, and that could be a time where you set aside 30 minutes for just yourself. A lot of times we think that meals have to be enjoyed with friends or family, but it doesn't. If you are a busy on-the-go person, sitting down to have a meal could be a good time for your alone time, some good headspace time, as we call it sometimes. But it is also nice to enjoy a meal, with your spouse or with a friend you haven't seen in a while, or maybe it's a friend you see every day. Maybe that's something regular or routine you do. Or, you can have, a group of people that you dine with. Just something that makes it nice and enjoyable and pleasant for you. You can turn the TV off, enjoy a good conversation, have a nice, good, healthy meal. All these ways to really kind of, stop that, eating and multitasking, habit that we can kind of quickly get into. All right, so one final thing to consider when you're practicing mindful eating is to consider, where your food came from and what you're eating, and to really focus on, the experience of eating. So thinking about all kinds of things from, if you're eating fruits and vegetables, well, where are these foods grown? What part of the world do these foods come from? Like, how far did this food have to travel to get to your plate? What does it look like when it's growing out of the ground? We don't consider, what a chopped up bell pepper actually looks like when it's, on the grocery store, shelf versus when it's actually growing out of the ground. I had no idea that okra grows like upside down and kind of like little trees. So until you stop to look at that, sometimes you don't think about these things. If you're eating something, maybe that was prepackaged or something like that, like think about the workers in the factory who put this together, who put that label on there, who put the box together. There's all kinds of considerations about your food that we take for granted a lot of times. The workers in the farms who are picking the foods. The people who run the big businesses that deliver our food to us, the people who are driving the trucks and things. Another thing you can do is also to just engage all of your senses. We think about food as taste a lot of times, but stop a moment and consider the colors on your plate, the smells, the textures, the shapes of things, all the different senses that you can enjoy, what it looks like. Obviously, you're probably not going to use your fingers to feel what it feels like, but you can feel the textures in your mouth. You can smell all the different smells. So that's kind of a nice way to, again, if you're eating intentionally and you're chewing and you're eating slowly, these are good, ways to practice kind of that, engaging of all of the senses and really appreciating your food. And finally, I think one of the most important aspects to eating is to, before you eat or maybe after you eat, just to take a brief moment to be grateful for your food, to be grateful for the people who prepared it for you or who grew it, all the people involved in getting that food to your plate, and then just be grateful for the privilege of having a nice, healthy, nutritious meal to eat, throughout your day. I think that's very important, whether that's a formal prayer or just kind of a little thought. Whatever is appropriate for you, I think it's important to just take a moment to realize how fortunate we are to have good food. So this is just one way that you can incorporate mindfulness into your life. If you are a mindless eater, that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. It's important maybe to find other ways that you can kind of center your life and, take control of your emotions and be present. But I think, again, this is a great way to incorporate some good eating habits and some good eating patterns, maybe control some, physical symptoms of poor eating, kind of get you back into focusing on eating healthier and eating more nutritious foods. All right, so that wraps up our topic for today. I hope that this was some good information for you. Hopefully it didn't, make you squeamish like our cicada discussion last week. Anyway, and if you have any questions about what mindfulness is or how you can, change a couple of things about the way you eat, I'd be happy to talk more about it with you. I think it's great to, communicate and talk about different ideas, things that work for you and things that don't. And now that I am done, I am on vacation tomorrow, and I'm very excited. So I'll be on vacation for a few days, and then next week is our live stream vacation because it'll be Residence Council, so I won't be doing the show next week. So then, so I guess we'll be back the next week. So I posted the dates in the Informer, so you can check that out. So anyway, I hope everybody has a good week. Enjoy the Jubilee. Happy Father's Day, and we'll see you in 2 weeks. Bye.